It was supposed to be just another ordinary Tuesday. The cafe was unusually packed that morning, every table taken. The air thick with the scent of roasted coffee beans and the gentle hum of conversations and keyboard taps. I had barely managed to snag a small table by the fireplace just in time to wrap my hands around a warm cappuccino. It was my little escape before heading to my second job at the bookstore. That's when I saw him. A tall man stood near the entrance, scanning the room with quiet urgency. His dark overcoat was damp at the shoulders, probably from the light drizzle. Outside and in his arms, he carried a little girl no older than 4. Her curls were damp too, her cheeks flushed with the cold, and her tiny backpack slid slightly off his shoulder. Our eyes met, briefly. He looked around again, then down at the girl, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of standing too long with her in his arms. I don't know what came over me, but before I could second-guess myself, I raised my hand and smiled. "You can sit here, if you'd like." His eyebrows lifted with mild surprise, but then he nodded, walking over with a grateful smile. "Are you sure? I don't want to intrude." "You're not," I said, moving my sketchbook aside. "It's just coffee. Plenty of room." He lowered the little girl into the chair beside me, then sat across from her. She stared at the box of colored pencils I had brought along. I smiled at her. "Would you like to draw?" She nodded shyly. I passed her a blank page and the crayons. Her father watched her with a softness in his eyes that made my chest tighten unexpectedly. "I'm Ethan," he said finally, brushing his fingers through his wet hair. "Lena," I replied. A moment of silence passed. Not awkward, just peaceful. "Thank you," he said again, his voice low. "It's been a bit of a morning. She yours?" I asked gently, motioning toward the little girl now coloring a butterfly with fierce focus. He nodded, then glanced out the window before answering, "Yeah, she's everything." There was something in his voice like weight wrapped in calm. I didn't push. I just nodded. People passed in and out of the cafe. Orders were called out. But for the next 20 minutes, it felt like the world around our table had gone quiet. Ethan didn't talk much. Neither did I, but the little girl, Ava, as I soon learned, slowly opened up with her drawings and her giggles. And me? I couldn't stop stealing glances at him. There was something about the way he carried himself, kindness laced with sadness. A man who had stories he wasn't ready to share, not yet. After that morning, I didn't expect to see them again, but life has a strange sense of humor. 2 days later, I walked into the same cafe late again, exhausted after an overnight shift at the bookstore, and there they were, Ethan and Ava, sitting at the same table where we first met. Only this time, it was him who looked up and smiled first. "You always come here this early?" he asked. "Only when life doesn't let me sleep," I joked, sliding into the seat across from them. "Looks like we're table buddies now." Ava squealed when she saw my colored pencils and climbed onto the chair next to me. It was oddly comforting, like I'd walked into a familiar moment, even though technically we were still strangers. Ethan watched her, but his eyes occasionally drifted to me. He was quiet again, observing, thinking. We spent over an hour together. That morning, I learned that Ava liked butterflies, strawberry muffins, and calling her father Eefy when she wanted his attention. But Ethan, he gave away very little. No mention of a wife. No ring on his finger. No indication of what he did for work, only that he handled a few projects remotely. He asked about me, though, and that caught me off guard. "What about you, Lena?" he asked softly, his fingers wrapped around a black coffee. "What do you do when you're not saving tables for soaked strangers?" I laughed, brushing hair behind my ear. "I work 2 jobs, bookstore clerk and part-time illustrator. Freelance stuff mostly. Kids' books, greeting cards, whatever pays." He nodded slowly, like he was genuinely interested. "You're talented," he said, motioning to the sketch Ava was coloring. She doesn't usually focus like that unless she really likes what she's doing. His compliment lingered longer than I expected. Ava tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, show her the thing. He froze for a second, then gave her a gentle look. Not yet, sweetheart. The thing? I smiled curiously. He chuckled. Ava's a bit dramatic. It's just a silly drawing we do together sometimes. But it wasn't silly. Not later. I didn't press. I just enjoyed the moment. That quiet kind of comfort you rarely find with strangers. And honestly, I liked being around him. The way he was so present with his daughter. So patient. So ... Unlike the men I was used to ... as we left the cafe that morning, he held the door for me and said, "Same time tomorrow?" And I surprised myself by saying yes. The next few mornings became a quiet routine. Same cafe. Same corner table. Same cappuccino for me, black coffee for him, and crayons for Ava. It felt like we were building something without talking about it. No promises. No labels. Just shared. Silence and soft smiles. One morning, Ava wasn't with him. I walked in and saw him alone, staring out the window like he was somewhere far away. She's with her nanny today, he said before I could even ask. Thought she deserved a slow morning. I sat down quietly. Something was off. He looked tired. Not physically, but in that soul-heavy kind of way. Like he had been carrying something for far too long. I hesitated before asking, "Are you okay?" He looked at me, held my gaze for a moment, then sighed. You ever feel like you're pretending to live a life that doesn't belong to you? His words hit something deep inside me, all the time. I said honestly, that made him smile, but there was sadness in it. I wasn't always like this, he said softly. Quiet, careful, hidden. I tilted my head. What changed? He stared at the coffee in his hand, then answered, "My wife." I waited. She died 3 years ago. Car accident. I was out of the country for work. She was on her way to a children's hospital fundraiser with Ava in the back seat. She didn't survive. Ava did. A lump formed in my throat. I never forgave myself, he continued, for not being there, for missing it, for everything after. I'm so sorry, I whispered. He nodded. I buried myself in work. Moved cities. Changed our names legally. Not because we were running, but because I needed to forget the man I was before that night. I blanked. Changed names? He gave a soft, bitter laugh. I'm not really Ethan. My real name is irrelevant for now. But back then, I ran a tech firm. Startup went public 2 years before the accident. I was financially fine. Emotionally, broken. Millionaire. The word echoed in my mind, but not the way I thought it would. He didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a man trying to breathe underwater. And Ava? I asked gently. She doesn't remember much. Just the sound of sirens. And that her mom never came home. I reached across the table, placing my hand lightly on his. He looked down at it, then up at me. No one knows us here, he said, and that's the way I like it. But you're the first person I've told in 2 years. My heart was pounding not from shock, but from the weight of his trust. I'm honored, I whispered. And in that moment, it no longer mattered that he was wealthy. All I saw was a man trying to heal and something deep inside me wanted to help him. The next few days felt like I was walking in a dream. Ethan, or whatever his real name was, had opened a part of himself I knew wasn't easy. And though we didn't talk about his wealth again, it lingered unspoken between us. Not in a flashy way, but in the subtle signs I started to notice. The quiet way he paid for everyone's coffee one morning and said nothing. The sleek black SUV parked a block away, always with the same driver in a suit and earpiece. The rare but watchful glances he gave to strangers who got too close to Ava. the exclusive library card in his wallet, only given to patrons who donated over 6 figures. I didn't ask questions, until someone else did. It happened on a Sunday morning. The cafe was quiet. Ava was coloring on the floor near our table, and I was halfway through telling him about an illustration job I had just landed when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Ethan?" We both froze. A tall, well-dressed man in his 40s approached our table. He had the air of someone who wasn't used to being ignored. "I thought you were still in Zurich," the man said, forcing a smile. "Or was it Singapore this time?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Henry, this isn't the time." The man ignored his tone and looked at me. "And who's this? Your new assistant?" I felt myself shrink under the weight of his words. But Ethan stood up, calm and composed. "This is Lena, a friend." Henry gave me a once-over, then scoffed. "Ah, a friend, right?" I stood up too, suddenly angry. "Actually, I'm the person who gave him a seat when no one else did. No title necessary." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Still choosing ghosts over reality, huh?" Ethan's voice went cold. "Leave, Henry." And he did, but the damage had been done. I waited until Ava was distracted with her drawing before whispering, "Who was that?" "My former business partner," Ethan said, exhaling, "and one of the many reasons I left everything behind." There was pain in his eyes again, but this time something else too. "Shame? He made it sound like you ran away," I said gently. He sat down, staring at his hands. "In a way, I did. After I lost my wife, the board pushed me out. Side I was too emotional, a liability. They didn't care about grief. They only cared about numbers." I wanted to say something, anything. But he continued. "I didn't run from my wealth, Lena. I ran from people who treated it like the only thing that defined me." My heart twisted. "You never told me your real name," I said quietly. He looked at me long and deep. Then finally whispered, "Eric Vale." The name hit me like a wave. Eric Vale, the tech genius, founder of Parallax Cloud Systems. The man who once graced the cover of Forbes, then disappeared. I remembered reading about him. Everyone thought he'd sold everything and vanished into the Alps, but he hadn't. He was sitting right in front of me. And suddenly everything made sense. The silence, the watchful eyes, the broken kindness. He wasn't just hiding from the world. He was healing from it, and I was falling for him. But falling in love with a man who belonged to a world so different from mine, that terrified me more than anything. I didn't sleep much that night. Eric's name, his real name, kept echoing in my head. Eric Vale, the billionaire dropout. The man who turned cloud software into an empire, and then disappeared like mist. And now I knew him not from headlines, but from the way he gently tucked his daughter's curls behind her ears, or the way his voice dipped when he remembered his wife. That next morning, I didn't go to the cafe. I needed air, space. I walked the city. For hours, past bookstores, past coffee carts, past people who would never know what it felt like to be pulled into someone else's universe. Was I stupid to feel this way? He never lied, not really. He never showed off, never used his money to impress me. He sat at my table when no one else asked. He listened. He opened up. He gave me more honesty than most people ever had. But still, what was I, really? Just a girl with 2 jobs, a worn-out shoulder bag, and a box of broken-colored pencils. He was everything I'd never dared to imagine. That night, my phone buzzed. "Eric, you okay?" I stared at the screen. Typing. Then backspace. Then typing again. Me, I don't know. I just needed a moment. His reply came faster than I expected. "Eric, I understand. Ava misses you." That broke something in me. Not even he said he missed me. But she did. The little girl who laughed at my silly drawings and held my hand when crossing the cafe floor. I closed my eyes. What was I so afraid of? That I wasn't enough for him? Or that, maybe? For the first time in my life, someone actually saw me. I finally went back the next morning. He was there, waiting. Ava squealed when she saw me, running into my arms. I looked up at him. His face was unreadable, guarded. "I'm sorry I disappeared," I whispered. He nodded. "I get it. I gave you too much too fast." "No," I said. "You gave me truth. That scared me. But I'm done being scared now." He looked at me for a long time, then pulled something from his coat pocket. A drawing, folded, a crayon sketch. In Ava's messy style, it was me sitting at the cafe table, and Eric across from me. Ava between us. 3 smiles. Under it, scribbled in crayon, "Our friend Lena. Please don't go." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I wasn't looking for any of this," I said. "Not love. Not fairy tales. Definitely not millionaires." He smiled faintly. "And I wasn't looking for anyone who'd change how I see the world. But here we are." "Yes," he whispered. "Here we are, and for the first time." I felt like I belonged somewhere. Not in his wealth. Not in his past, but in the present moment, sitting across from a man who finally wasn't pretending, and who didn't want me to pretend either. Weeks passed, not all of them perfect. Some days I'd wake up questioning everything, still haunted by the voices that once told me I wasn't enough. Other days, I'd walk into the cafe and see Ava waiting for me, holding a fresh sketchbook. With my name scribbled on the cover, Eric and I never rushed anything. He respected that. He never threw wealth at me. Never tried to fix my life with checks or credit cards. Instead, he'd sit across from me, listen to every chaotic thought in my head, and hand me warm cappuccinos just the way I like them, always with a tiny heart in the foam. One evening, I met them in the park near the lake. Ava ran ahead with a paper kite, while Eric and I walked slowly under the golden orange sky. "I've been thinking," he said, eyes on the horizon, "about going back." "To the tech world?" I asked. He shook his head. "To being present, public again." "Maybe. In a different way. Not as the old Eric Vale, but as a father. And as a partner." My heart skipped. "Partner?" He looked at me, calm and clear. "You've shown me that love doesn't need a boardroom pitch or a headline. It just needs one person brave enough to offer a chair when the world is full." I smiled, remembering that first day, my outstretched hand, his hesitant smile, the little girl watching from his arms. "You offered me that chair, Lena, and I sat down, not knowing I was taking the first step towards something I thought I'd lost forever." I looked at him. "I wasn't offering a seat," I whispered. "I was offering kindness. You just made it more." A week later, I walked into the cafe alone, the same one where everything had begun. It was early, quiet, but something was different. A waiter approached and said, "There's a reservation for you." Confused, I followed him to our table and found a small wrapped box with a ribbon and a note. "To the girl who gave us more than a seat, you gave us a home." Inside was a hand-carved wooden nameplate. It read, "Lena's Table." I gasped. Then I turned. Eric and Ava were standing by the door. She held a bouquet of tiny daisies. He held nothing but hope in his eyes. "We thought it was time this table had a name," he said. Tears blurred my eyes. I nodded. "It was never just a table," I whispered. "It was the beginning." He stepped closer, gently taking my hand. "No more hiding," he said. "No more running." I replied. Ava wedged herself between us, wrapping her arms around both our legs, and just like that, a crowded cafe, a simple gesture, a quiet little girl and one open heart had built something stronger than wealth. A family. The end.